Brett, who is your first garbage person of 2026?
My first garbage person of 2026 is Joe Rogan. And I'll explain how he is very similar to like a Russian circus bear in a second. But first, here is a tweet that went out that says Joe Rogan just said the quiet part out loud, says Overton News, about Trump's war on drugs, and it completely shatters the media's narrative. Overdose deaths are collapsing nationwide, and Rogan says it's not an accident. Here's the video that is obviously gonna get debunked by me in a second. Take a look.
From the time Trump's been in office, deaths by overdose have dropped off a cliff. Look at that. Look at 2024. And leading into 2025.
Just
look
going
at
down.
These are all deaths from overdoses. I mean, that's kind of crazy. Like, look at that. From all drugs, which is the top one, look at that drop. I mean, that's crazy. So you see the peak in was in 2022. Or it looks like actually 2020, between 2023 and 2024. That's the peak where people are dying. And then from the time Trump's in office, it's taking a sharp downturn. And why is that? Well, part of it is because they're blowing up these fucking boats that are bringing in all the drugs. And not just drugs, but drugs that are tainted with fentanyl.
So you might be wondering, what's wrong with what he's saying? Can we put up graphic 2, please? Graphic 2 is just a screen capture of what he did. If you'll see, and when he's talking about when the peak is, he acknowledges what I'm about to say as the actual way that this works. If it is true that the peak is somewhere between 2023 and 2024, it is also true that this graph stops before 2025. January of which was when Trump took office. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? It is like a circus bear, where lately he's been pushing back against Trump and his immigration stuff. And it's like, oh, you're doing the tree. Oh, that's impressive. You're not acting like a bear. You're acting like something more evolved than that. But then he goes and does this, and that's like when the bear just starts eating people. What are you like? And this is what's so frustrating is like, I can't. He said this to Jamie like 4 seconds before it was on screen, so Jamie didn't have time to fact check it. But like, you are so responsible for how people think. And I know you're also just Joe Rogan, and I get it, dude. I get it.
Then
but like,
stop
also
talking about politics.
You can't read a chart. How are you analyzing geopolitics? And just like right before this clip, here's an actual interaction between him and his guest. Now, aren't they kind of blowing the Ecuadorian ships up that are coming to here that are having a lot of drugs on them? Joe steps in. Yeah, Venezuela, right. And then he says, Venezuelan ships, they're just blowing them up. I don't even know. I'm not educated on stuff like that. Why are you talking about it?
Yeah.
At a certain point, there's a certain level of responsibility. This doesn't keep me up at night. But it is garbage people, which is just like, that's so garbage. It's 2025 now, not in the chart, but it's 2025 now. You've been doing this for like 15 years. Is there not a drop of humility in your approach to these things? Also, he blew up like 6 dinghies.
That saves 300,000 lives each. They believe. Yeah.
It's
Brett,
crazy. But there's people in the comments doing the thing that we're like, this is probably why you should be more responsible with your analysis, Joe. They're like, oh, finally, someone's saying it. Why don't you give him credit for what he did? There's no evidence for any of the stuff that he said so far. There's just video of blowing up dinghy. And by the way, you're so close because this was your criticism, I think, of like the Bush administration for lying to us to go to war in Iraq. But you are, not so ironically, taking it hook, line, and sinker when it's justifying an invasion of Venezuela.
Yeah.
John.
So I found that to be utterly enraging. Like we almost did last week, Pam Bondi just sharing the graph, but like he analyzed the graph, and he wasn't just wrong. You can be wrong. He was exactly the opposite of right.
Later,
this proves it's not Trump. Biden evidently deserved credit, and you're giving Biden's credit to Trump, which they're all now going to do. They're all going to say, because let's assume that continues going down. And you know why we can assume that? Because it's not about the boats, because the boats weren't sunk when that happened. You know what it's probably about? I don't know. Did you notice that the numbers jumped up following the pandemic? And we're now getting away from the pandemic and the numbers are coming down? I'm not, I don't get paid hundreds of millions of dollars to do a Spotify show, but I think it might have been the pandemic that was raising those numbers actually. And so they're gonna claim credit in the same way that they like go into DC, they send the National Guard, they say crime's up, it's not. Crime's not up. And then they're like, hey, look, there's no crime. No, but it already didn't have the crime. And again, he said, Brett, in 2024 leading into 2025, he almost seemed to understand. And the only issue is that it does lead into 2025, but it literally doesn't contain 2025.
Right.
It ends in October of 2024. It doesn't even include Donald Trump having won the election, let alone being inaugurated, let alone blowing up the boats. And it seems crazy to me, Brett, that he is not going to and does not have to do a major retraction for that.
Pam Bondi deleted the post about this, that he's basing his whatever, I'm not gonna call it reporting. I don't actually think it's reporting, but like this is the level of dumb he's at, which is fine. But like, yeah, this is it's so stupid. It's like he's saying, oh, it was the 2024 election, so it must be 2020. Like, I've done that. I've patted my pocket being like, oh, I got my keys. And then I realized, oh no, I didn't have my keys in my pocket. What was I thinking? You said 2024, you know that it was January 6th is like when insurrection time happened.
Yeah.
That's the next year and it's not on it's just so like.
And then he does the pathetic thing of when he gets stuff wrong constantly. Well, I'm just a guy or whatever. Then don't talk about it. You actually don't have to talk about politics. You didn't even really seem to like to. Just talk about drugs, talk about money, talk about whatever, UFC. Just talk about that stuff. You don't have to talk about this stuff that you are not qualified to talk about. Because take it to the bank, there are millions of guys who now are gonna quote that section that you just saw positively. And they have been abused by this guy who is not qualified to be talking about what he's talking about.
John.
God, and he's getting paid so much money to be so lazy, so freaking lazy.
I feel like Patton Oswalt. He's like, I would also lose my mind if you gave me $100 million. He's doing pretty well given the fact they gave him $100 million. Yeah.